Hi, I am Jenny and welcome to FREEJOO, the global community of educators. Let me show you why as an educator you should make FREEJOO an important part of your teaching and learning practice. A community of teaching practice is important for any educator. On FREEJOO you will be able to access CollabEd, which is like LinkedIn but for educators. Here you will be able to connect and network with other educators from all around the world. You can build your own community of teaching practice and/or join one of the many other existing groups and learn and share ideas, lesson plans, etc. with each other. Then, for a more formalized approach to professional development, you can go to SkillEd, which is like Netflix for educators. Here, you will be able to access a wide range of courses designed by global experts that will help you to learn about new pedagogical, technical, and soft skills, all related to 21st century education and the future of work. There are more than 20 courses available for free, and for more advanced level courses, you can upgrade to the Silver membership plan for just $20 per year and get access to all courses designed by Acadesia. The courses are available in English and in several other Asian languages. And what's more, you will receive a free verifiable and tamper-proof digital certificate for each course that you complete. If you have upgraded your membership to the Silver, Gold, or Platinum plans, you also get access to DesignEd, which is like Canva for educators. Here you will find the easiest and fastest way to practice your own instructional design skills and build your own courses. We have pre-integrated several third-party edtech apps like Flipgrid, Canva, Mentimeter, Padlet, H5P, Zoom, etc. right into FREEJOO so you can make your courses engaging and fun for your own learners. As you can see, there is a lot you can do on FREEJOO as an educator. So what are you waiting for? Go to www.freejoo.com and get your very own free lifetime membership today. See you soon on FREEJOO.
All right, hello and welcome to all our friends, fellow educators, administrators, deans, faculty members, even non-academic school members and friends. It's another Wednesday afternoon, Webinar Wednesday. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, anywhere you are in the world. You are welcome to the Acadesia Webinar Wednesdays. So as you know, Acadesia is an education technology business. We are mission driven and our goal is to empower educators everywhere. And the way we do that is we offer pedagogy, technology, and life skills so that to better enhance the capabilities of all our educators to teach better in the 21st century. And one of the topics today that we'll be handling actually and discussing with all of you, presenting all of you, is one of the key ways that you can actually simultaneously earn a lot of these skills as you train with us. And we think it's a very interesting topic because as the world changes and moves forward, you know, with the advent of technology and other things that are, we're increasingly using AI, machine learning, robotics to automate a lot of the previous tasks and jobs that we do at work and at home. What now becomes of the role of human beings in the sense that how can we actually adapt to this new oncoming world? So the skills that we learn, especially what we call the entrepreneurial mindset, is actually something that we can all learn together. And this webinar will be actually discussing with several experts that have gone through similar programs like this and have gone through this program with us at Acadesia to shed some light on it. So again, thank you again to all our friends from all over the world. We have some friends from Indonesia who are watching now in the stream. I can see we have some friends from Jeddah, also of course from Philippines, and of course our friends from the other countries will be joining in as well. So again, I'll introduce myself. I'm Roy Platon. If you don't know me yet, I'm one of the co-founders and the Chief Community Officer of Acadesia. And I'm very proud and happy to have all of you here with us today. So without further ado, I'll just go through a lot of our speakers and introduce them because we have a lot. So because we have a lot of speakers, the time will actually be quite quick. So I'll just get right to it. I'll introduce them one at a time so that we can start the discussion promptly. So of course, our first guest actually hails from Philippines. Um, he actually heads the entrepreneurship program that we have deployed there at Lyceum Philippines University in Batangas. So Lyceum Batangas, LPU Batangas. And he is the dean of College of Business Administration there. And I've actually known our speaker for more than a couple of years now. We got a chance to meet face to face before the pandemic and met consistently virtually during the pandemic. And I'm very glad to have him here again with us. Again, introducing the dean of the College of Business Administration at Lyceum Batangas, Dr. Ray Fernan Refusar. Dr. Ray.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's my pleasure to be with you this afternoon, talking about how to cultivate an entrepreneurial mindset. You know, Roy, it's been years already since we have this partnership with Acad Asia on how we are going to implement entrepreneurship program in LPU Batangas. And it's so nice working with you guys.
Thanks very much, Dr. Ray. Let's talk more as the next hour goes on. So now I'll introduce our next speaker. She actually graduated with a major in economics from UC Berkeley and has a master's in education from Harvard University. And she has spoken at several events and other occasions regarding Gallup strengths-based coaching, uh, as well as lifelong learning for sustainable business growth. So she's uh, quite accomplished. She is also currently the rector at Institute Asia Malang in Indonesia. May I introduce Ibu, Mrs. Risa Santoso. Risa.
Hi. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me join the conversation.
Fantastic. Thank you, Risa, for joining us this afternoon, and terima kasih for joining us. And say hello to all our friends watching from Indonesia now.
Hello.
So our next speaker is joining us out of Singapore. He is the founder of Hatch Dev Asia, one of Singapore's fastest growing property technology companies. His company empowers real estate professionals to achieve their aspirations through digital transformation. Some of his notable achievements include representing Singapore in the Alibaba Startup Global Finals in Hangzhou, China, successfully fundraised and is spearheading youth entrepreneurship awards and events at a national level. And he's a young 25 years old, and he's a good friend of our CEO. And maybe a little later we can chat a little bit about how he knows us. May I introduce, out of Singapore, Mr. Clinton Lee. Clinton.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Right, happy to be here. Thanks for having me today. So hopefully over the next hour or so, I'll be able to share with the audience some insights on maybe more towards youth entrepreneurship, as well as how I have benefited from a program like this. All right, thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Clinton. And of course, last but definitely not the least, maybe the thorn among the flowers. I'm just joking. He is obviously our CEO and co-founder of Acad Asia, more than 30 years experience in media, technology, and business, and the visionary spearhead behind all of this. I am proud to introduce my co-founder and friend, Mr. Nilesh Bhatia. Neil?
Hey, Roy. Hey, everybody. Hi, Risa, Dr. Ray, Clinton. So good to see all of you. And of course, all the audience. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. And yes, Roy, you forgot one thing, the thorn amongst the flowers, but the bald thorn. Okay, so I'm looking forward to getting on to the discussion. And yeah, let's get started.
Fantastic. So maybe it's not as prickly as you might think. Okay, so um, just to get right into the discussion. Okay, so we're trying to cultivate an entrepreneurial mindset, and we want to explore in this webinar for the next hour, our dear audience, why is this actually important, and why is this essential in skills building for not just our learners, but even us as academics and educators to learn more about this entrepreneurial mindset. As I mentioned at the top of the program, we're digitizing everything. We're learning about AI, machine learning, and robotics. I mean, you can just search all sorts of content and videos on YouTube. You have, or other media platforms. You have, let's say, robots constructing their own houses. Okay, you have, let's say, VR and AR. So all of these things are moving towards a more technology-enabled future. But where does that leave as human beings? What kind of skills are we going to need? If Are we going to come to a point where all these machines are doing all our work for us, or is there still a role for human beings? And those skill sets, those skills of the entrepreneurs, actually, so we can touch upon topics such as design thinking, systems thinking, empathy, problem-solving skills, among many others, actually essential for learners to cultivate today. And thus, as educators, we need to have that so that, in preparation for the future work and future challenges. So when we actually talk about entrepreneurship, and I'll just get right into it, I'll go through our set of guide questions towards the end. We'll have a question and answer portion later. Moments from now, we'll be flashing the link so that you can actually post your questions and share it with us so that you can actually ask your questions later. But to start off the discussion, I'd like to ask the panel, anyone can start. So when we say entrepreneurship, what do we actually mean when we say entrepreneurship? Who is the entrepreneur? All right. And what skills and competencies does the entrepreneur possess? And what kind of mindset does this person have? So anybody, please.
All right. When we say entrepreneurship, it is the concept of developing, organizing, and running a business enterprise along with any of its uncertainties in order to earn a profit, in order to make a profit for the business. And when we say entrepreneur is someone who has the ability to or desire to establish, administer, and succeed in a startup venture along with the risk entitled to it in making a profit. So, in a nutshell, anyone who has the will, determination to start a new company and deals with all the risks associated with it as we go on, that become an entrepreneur.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. Anyone else want to kind of chime in on this? So who is this entrepreneur? What kind of skills do they possess? And what kind of mindset does the entrepreneur have?
I think I'll probably chime in there with, based on what Dr. Ray said. I agree with the definition. I think that's a very academic definition, which is true, 100% right. But I kind of like to look at it from a different lens slightly. To me, I think the biggest misconception that we have in academia is that entrepreneurship is all about business and it's all about profit. I think that's a huge misconception. To me, it is basically anybody can be an entrepreneur, or anybody could have an entrepreneurial mindset, as long as they are able to identify problems or issues within communities and find time to actually resolve those problems regardless of the financial profit. Financial profit is of course part and parcel of it. I mean, at the end of the day, if you can make some money out of it, great, but that shouldn't be the be all and end all. I think it's all about to me, entrepreneurship, or somebody with an entrepreneurial capability is anybody. It could be literally anybody who can find a problem, who can see a problem in the community and say, rather than wait for somebody else to come and solve it, let me roll up my sleeves, get my hands dirty, and try and solve that problem, and benefit the society on the whole. To me, that's what I would basically say is entrepreneurial.
Yeah, thanks, Neil, for that. So yeah, Dr. Ray started up by giving the known definition, and thank you for that, Dr. Ray. But I guess this angle now is more a problem solver, not necessarily always for profit, although obviously there's a profit angle for a strictly entrepreneurial definition. But the mindset, I think that's what we're trying to focus on. So Risa or Clinton, please go ahead and share about this.
I think I'd like to add about what Nilesh was saying, right? I think one of the important thing about having an entrepreneurial mindset is that you can make decision even if there's a lot of uncertainties. I think that's one thing. Like right now, it's very hot topic. We have to become an agile organization. Like that's very something that I think almost all organizations are talking about, right? Becoming agile and that sort of stuff. And I think it does not only apply to the entrepreneur in a business, but it's like everyone have to be able to have that kind of mindset, being able to create decision by weighing the risk, what Dr. Ray was saying, right? Weighing the risk and be able to create a decision that in the end supports the organization, supports the company. And I think even in education right now, because right now I'm the rector or chancellor of my institute, right? And even then, I think it's very important for all of my lecturers to be able to create such decisions.
Yeah, absolutely, Risa, because it's really about being able to weigh the risks and actually consider how to actually approach solving these problems and issues, and being comfortable with a lot of unknowns, as you were saying. Like, so maybe not everything is clearly defined, but still able to push forward. Clinton, do you have something to share about this?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So to start with, I think I agree with all of the points that has been mentioned, right? So in my opinion, in terms of entrepreneurship, right, or being an entrepreneur, right, an entrepreneur, differs from being a business person, right, to some extent, right? For an entrepreneur, I feel like the pain point, right, is a huge part of it. So understanding what are the pain points of this target audience that you are bringing value to is extremely crucial, right? So it would not be in a way just because it is a business opportunity, right? So it's not just about the profit, right? It's not about identifying that okay, maybe there's some profit to embark on this business opportunity, right? But it's more of understanding, right, the target market that you are serving, right? Understanding and listening to what are the pain points and the struggles that they face, right? And coming out and this is where you start to innovate, right? To innovate ideas and solutions that you can help to empower them, right? So I think the innovation part is something that really drives entrepreneurship. Yeah. And in terms of characteristics or traits or skill sets, I think there are so many to cover, right? But one of the most important is the ability to withstand setbacks and also taking risk, right? Because in entrepreneurship, risk taking is such a big part of it, right? There will be risk from day to day decisions, right? There will be rejections, especially when you start, your business, right? And I think knowing how to adapt to all these challenges is a very big part of entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Clinton. So, being able to innovate and change, and you mentioned, very specific concepts associated with the idea of entrepreneurship. So, like a target market, pain points, right? So, maybe for some of our educators in the audience, right? For example, let's say if you're trying to solve, your own problems. Let's say, for example, in the classroom, where you, let's say, need to finish the lesson, let's say in a 40-minute time span, and you have so many topics to cover. So in using Clinton's words, like the target market or the audience, the pain points is, how do I get my students to learn within 40 minutes these learning outcomes, right? And then the skill sets to actually solve that and deliver the content and the learning to your students. In a way, that's what, as we were saying, the idea of entrepreneurship can be very broad, in the sense that it can apply not just to business, but in problem solving in general, right? So, and you can apply these concepts even intuitively, without really us being fully aware of it. We are actually applying these problem solving skills in our homes and families, in the education environment, as well as business. So I'll move on now to the next topic. The next question here is, so given we have some idea of who or what the entrepreneur is and what kind of skills and mindset they would have, is it possible actually for anybody to be an entrepreneur? Because a while ago we were talking about risk taking, right? So we're saying, like, why are we associating, typically being an entrepreneur or having a business as risky, or being what they say, risk averse or not, right? Or you're okay with risk, right? So can anyone, given that set up be an entrepreneur? Is the mindset to be an entrepreneur a teachable thing, or is it learnable? Or more specifically, do I need to start my own business before I can start gaining the entrepreneurial mindset? Do I really need to start my own business to do so? So maybe we can go round the table again, maybe in the reverse order. Maybe Clinton, if that's okay with you. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do I need to be a business owner or start a business to have an entrepreneurial mindset?
Well, I think entrepreneurship is something that, or rather, entrepreneurial thinking is something that it's more challenging to teach in a classroom setting, for example. It is something that is very hands-on, is very practical. You can be, an A student, right, in business, modules, but that does not mean that you can succeed as an entrepreneur, right? However, having the foundation, I think, is important, right? The knowledge itself, right? But in terms of whether or not people should embark on entrepreneurship, I think it is something that we all should embark on at some time or the other. And the reason being is that it at the end of the day, it all depends on what mindset, right, you are entering it into it, right? So from the way that I see it, there is only win and there is no lose, right? So whatever that you learn from the venture itself or from the journey itself will empower you, some way or another, right, in your own life or anything that you do in the future, right? And of course, it's great that if you are already naturally inclined in certain traits, for example, being good in sales, right, being good in public presentations, I think those will definitely help an entrepreneur. But at the end of the day, it's through the process itself where you start to really hone, all the skills, right, that you have, and to pick up new skills as well, which will definitely empower you in other areas as well.
Yeah, so I'll just comment a little bit on what you said, Clinton. So it's what you're saying is being able to have those kinds of skills. Typically, you talked about sales, and relating to that, sales is basically just being able to present value in your product or service that a customer is willing to purchase for a certain value, and therefore it turns into a sale. But what you're saying is, the actual activity of doing that, the skill behind that entrepreneurial activity is actually public speaking. So you could have, let's say, our teachers who have to be pretty good in public speaking because they have to talk to their students a lot. That can actually be connected to a sales or an entrepreneurial type of skill. So yeah, and as you said, there's winning and no lose, right? So that connotes a more positive outlook, a optimistic attitude, right? So from a mindset point of view, while you're strictly speaking not starting your own business, but as many of our audiences have applied in their own life, just being gung-ho about things, being positive and getting things going, started and doing, they're actually already practicing some entrepreneurial skills without even knowing it. Would you agree or disagree with that, Risa?
I think definitely I agree with some of the points that Clinton was saying, right? I think the skills, you really need that. But I believe that when you say whether everyone can do it or not, I think definitely everyone can acquire the skills. But whether someone can actually execute it or not, I think it's largely will be based on the organization. Because I think when you talk about entrepreneur, right? As any business, there's a chance. We were talking about risk. There's a chance for us not succeeding something. So I think the culture of being okay with failure. Some people might celebrate failure. I think that's really important because if there's an organization that does not allow failures and it's really being harsh on that kind of thing, then it's really hard for us to push other people to want to innovate, to want to create something, because there will be a chance that the product will fail, And so I think like when we think about entrepreneur mindset, I think definitely where we are working at with our organization will play a very big role in executing that kind of skills and attitude.
Yeah, I like what you said, Larissa, because I guess in the context of the of the school or the university or where you are, the institution, it's important that there is a environment that supports this openness to being accepting failure or having a chance of things not succeeding or not pushing through, because
Yeah.
sometimes you know the usual way when we conduct courses or tests or classes, it's quite obvious there's a test, an exam or assessment, then the student has to kind of be successful at that test and hit a certain passing mark. But what happens when things don't work out? What happens if the presentation is not as up to standard, up to quality? So is there a space to allow for that a learning to happen despite the failures, right?
Yeah.
So that I think is something a really important item that I got from your sharing. Neil, any insights on this? Can anyone be an entrepreneur? Is it a teachable or learnable skill?
Yeah. So I think I can throw the question back at the audience and ask, is it, can anybody breathe? When we are born, do you have to learn how to breathe? Do you have to, or are you or is it an automatic kind of a thing, right? Um, so entrepreneurship, and the reason I'm saying this is because a lot of people talk about entrepreneurship and risk. They go hand in hand, and a lot of people say, "Oh, but it's so risky. It's so difficult. What if I fail? What if I lose everything?" But the thing is, when you're a kid, you don't have that risk thing, right? Because as a kid, you do all kinds of stupid things. It's as in how you grow. Then your parents basically tell you, no, don't do this, don't do that, don't go here, don't go there, and that's where you start thinking, oh, okay, now this life is a risky life. But actually, if you really think about it, risk is everywhere. It's inherent. It's part and parcel of life. And in fact, I've mentioned this many times. In fact, Dr. Ray, you might remember this in your training class with LCM. I say this all the time. Think about it for a second. We are all inhabitants of planet Earth, which is basically nothing but a rock floating in space at I don't know how many gazillion kilometers per hour, hurtling through space, nothing holding it back. If that is not risky, what is? You're living on a planet which can basically, anything can happen to the planet, right? Uh, Sometimes we say, "Oh, it's so risky," but then if you stay in bed, that could be risky too. You get out on the road to eat satay on the street, that could be risky too. Risk is everywhere. So I think as educators, what the role should be, not to just talk about the theory part of entrepreneurship, like business model canvas, and that is all, those kind of things can be taught, that everybody can learn them. But what is important for educators to really teach, or not, I wouldn't say teach, but allow the students to experience it firsthand, is that it's okay to fail. But having said that, that line itself, that it is okay to fail, is contrary to the belief in academia, because in academia we believe that you should not fail. Die but don't fail your exams, right? Your GPA needs to be at a certain level. But the issue with that is, um, failure is all around. Life is full of failures, life is full of successes. And if we as educators do not show our students on how to deal with failure and move forward, then we basically aren't doing our job. Because if you ask me, I mean, Clinton was my student. Dr. Ray has also been my student, and of course at different levels, and for different things. But um, the bottom line is this: if, say, for example, in Clinton's case, if I hadn't taught him how to deal with failure, he would have probably given up a long time ago. Uh, but if you're really learning about say business model canvas, I'm sure that information is available on the internet. The students today are smart enough to go and find that information if they want. So when you're talking about entrepreneurship education and cultivating an entrepreneurial mindset, I think it is important for us to really show our students it is okay to fail, and that once you fail, how do you pick yourself up again and learn from the failure and move forward, constantly be moving forward. And for that to happen, I think first and foremost, a lot of the teachers need to be trained, and the teachers need to cultivate an entrepreneurial mindset, because, like I said, entrepreneurship is completely contrary to the academic mindset. So the teachers need to actually develop that mindset first before they can share that with their learners.
Thanks so much, Neil, for that. Yeah, that's super interesting because, inherently, traditionally, when we went to schools, there's usually a certain passing grade or a minimum GPA that you earn, and therefore, failing is almost, a taboo. You can't even start discussing it. But when we start to problem solve and apply a more entrepreneurial mindset, there needs to be an awareness that yes, there's failures, but there's also successes, and there are risks, and how to kind of push forward through that. So, Dr. Ray, I just want to ask, as you have gone and adopted more entrepreneurial courses in LPU Batangas, right? So, how have you allowed your students to, not necessarily having to start their own business, but there is some leeway through the courses you're providing to
Exactly.
explore this entrepreneurial activity. So, were you able to teach, and were they able to learn from those
Yes.
activities that
So
you delivered?
one of my realizations is that you don't have to own a business to have an entrepreneurial mindset. All
Mm,
you have to do is to think like an entrepreneur. So
mm,
on our courses, our teaching and learning activities, on most of our courses, we injected entrepreneurial mindset, or we want our students to develop this entrepreneurial skills, wherein
mm,
they should think like an entrepreneur. They don't have to run or own their own business. They just have to think like entrepreneur, a way of thinking that enables them to overcome challenges, to be
mm,
decisive, to accept responsibility, to learn from their mistakes, and to take continuous actions on their ideas. So anyone willing to do work can develop an entrepreneurial mindset. And also, one of my realizations is that during my class with Nalish, and as we gone with our entrepreneurship program in LPA Batangas, that entrepreneurs are this answer to your question, Sir Roy, earlier about if entrepreneurship is teachable. Yes, I do
mm,
believe that entrepreneurs are not born; they are driven to it. All they have to do is to think like entrepreneur. So simply need to harness their entrepreneurial mindset. So that's what we do in LP Batangas now.
yeah, that's
Actually, if I
super encouraging, Dr.
go
Ray,
ahead,
because it's like when you're talking about it, it's like you're saying that there's certain skills that I guess we can teach, right?
Yes.
The business model canvas and whatnot, and that allows them the opportunity kind of explore what it is to be like an entrepreneur, not without having necessarily to start a business. However, I think they need to experience what it is like to be running their business, to fully go as deep as they can in terms of what it is like to be aware of the risks, and be aware of the possibilities of failure. Neil, you wanted to share something.
yeah, Roy. So I just wanted to kind of add on to what Dr. Ray said, and this is something that all teachers over here can learn from, right? The unique thing about Lyceum of the Philippines, Batangas campus, is that one of the first cohorts that actually went through, a lot of the teachers came in from the nursing school.
Mm,
Okay. Now, of course, they were all the nursing school lecturers were actually learning on how to help their students build an entrepreneurial mindset. Now, a lot of people might think like, why a nursing school? I mean, what has that got to do with entrepreneurship? Because this is exactly what I'm saying. There's this huge misconception that entrepreneurship is only about business. It shouldn't be. So the nursing school, in fact. Dr. Bring, the dean at the nursing school. I remember having a coffee with her, and she told me that I want my lecturers to be able to do this, because at the end of the day, our students who we are training to be nurses will work in hospitals, and I'm sure when they work in hospitals, they will also find a lot of challenges. There could be process issues, there could be technology issues, there could be all different kinds of problems that they will encounter in their workplace. But if the business students who have learned about entrepreneurship, they are not there in the hospitals, they are not there to solve that problem. So who's going to solve that problem for the nurses? It is important for the nurses to have that mindset, so that in the future, if they find a problem within the process or within the hospital or within whatever, that instead of waiting for some business student to walk into the hospital maybe one day and then find that problem and then hopefully try and solve it, they should be able to say, hey, you know what, let me try my hand at it, let me try and see if I can solve this problem, because I am the expert, I am the nurse, I know this thing much better than, say, a business student. And if I already have that entrepreneurial mindset, then I should be able to solve this problem for the entire nursing community. And that was the reason why she wanted all of her nursing lecturers to actually go through the training program, so that their lecturers can actually teach their students. And I found that so refreshing to hear from an academic, because typically what I hear from academics when I talk about entrepreneurship is, how many startups can I produce? How many startups can I get funded? Because I want to show that on my campus, that this particular campus produces 20, 30 startups, or we raised X amount of money. But that's not the point. At the end of the point is, can your students solve a problem? Are they resilient? Are they able to face any hurdles and overcome them? And if not, still, not lose heart and not be depressed, but say, okay, I tried and I learned all of these things from whatever issue that I tried tackling. I think that is the very important issue. And I hats off to Lyceum and Dr. Ray and Dr. Pring for having that attitude to empower their teachers to have that mindset.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, maybe Dr. Ray, I'll come back to you later, and maybe you can share a little bit more about how the entrepreneurship courses at your campus have really just share a few examples of your students and how they've gone through it. But before I come back to you, maybe I'll just shake the order about a little bit. I'm curious as to, maybe I want to ask Clinton this time. So you were talking about youth entrepreneurship a while ago, so we talked about that. So when you're talking to the young people and they're still starting out, trying to consider if they would become entrepreneurs or not, right? So when you're trying to impart those skills to them, what did you as a trainer or as a facilitator, what did you have to know first, so that you can actually impart these entrepreneurial mindset skills to these learners and students? I mean, how do you go about preparing and introducing the concept of problem solving and entrepreneurial mindset to the youth camps or the youth cohorts that you have?
Okay, well, that's an interesting question. So it's more of from the educating point of view, right?
Yes.
Okay, so over the recent years, I have done talks, in schools, as well as spearhead, the national awards for youth entrepreneurship in Singapore. So I've met, really quite a variety of youths in Singapore, right, who are interested or who are passionate in entrepreneurship. So I think in terms of how, or rather, one of the first things that will come to mind is understanding, their position in life. I think that's one thing. So, for example, which stage, are they in, right? What is the target audience that I'm speaking to? So even though they are all youths, but are they in secondary school, right? Are they in poly or university? So my approach will vary based on the target audience that that I'm targeting at or I'm sharing with. But more or less, in terms of the mindset behind it, is the same, right? So in terms of the traits or the skill sets that an entrepreneur will need, will remain more or less the same, right? Especially when we talk about things like how to fail, how to learn to cultivate a mindset of failing forward, right? But perhaps the analogies that I will provide will be different, right? So I think it's important that we connect with our audience or the students, right, in the educator perspective, right, more than just the syllabus itself, right? So
Mm.
giving analogies or examples that perhaps they can resonate with at their stage, I think that helps them to understand, right? Why is it important to cultivate, an entrepreneurial thinking, for example? But after all, I feel that it's a matter of time, right? So even if they are not able to really equip themselves with the thinking at that stage, but sometime down the road, right, it will resonate with them, and whatever that has been shared, that has been inspiring to them, would help them develop that thinking further. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot, Clinton. That's interesting. So, you again, applying an entrepreneurial mindset skill is knowing your audience, knowing who you're speaking to. That is empathy. That is knowing your customer, and therefore you can create a product or service or solution that kind of is tailor fit. In entrepreneurial circles, we call that product market fit, right? So that whatever you've kind of designed or created actually matches the needs of the customer or the audience, and then it's a win-win because they actually learned or got what they wanted out of the program or whatever you're offering to them. Yeah, some really nice messages I just saw on the screen. Like someone was sharing the definition of the etymology of the word entrepreneur. It's French in origin, meaning to undertake, all right, or to tackle or to kind of pursue. So very interesting root word for adventurer. So one way to look at it is not just only as, am I really an entrepreneur just to make money, but maybe it's an adventure. I want to be going trying something new, something different. It's not comfortable at all, but and that kind of skill, mostly with the young people and our young learners, they're probably more open to experiencing new things. Maybe one part of it is naivete and they're not sure what they're getting themselves into, but at least they're positive enough to give it a try. So there's so many questions, very interesting now that I'm seeing in the chat. So we'll try to go through some of the guide questions before we leap into the specific questions here. Risa, how about you and your experience when you're at your institution, at your institute? Are there opportunities where you allow students or teachers to kind of explore, simulate, some entrepreneurial mindset activities? I mean, even as brief, short modules or what have you. Have you tried doing something like that in your institution?
Definitely. We were inspired a few years ago because there was this time when Google was very famous for having a certain percentage of their employees' time to be able to create something other than what they are doing. So it's basically having a portion of the time to create a project that they're interested in, but it's not actually within the company's products. So I think we try to apply that to our teachers for them to be able to create something like a project. Sometimes there's training that they want to create, they want to do. So we tried that already, and I think not all of the projects will succeed. That's definitely one way of putting it. And we actually ended up spending more money, that more cost. I mean, the cost will definitely is more, but I think that kind of experience, being able to create something, collaborating with other people, right, to create something and make it happen, I think it definitely helps with how teachers are able to guide the students, for them to not only teach but look at the output and that sort of thing. I think it's very much helping the mindset and helping the way our lecturers teach. So we tried that. We also try several. Nilesh was saying as well, right, earlier in the chat, there's an incubator in our school. So we try creating programs as well to keep students interested in creating a startup, creating a small business here. So all of our students, they will go through 3 semesters of a class that teaches them about business, about how to create something, about the professional mindset, not only the entrepreneur side, but also like how do we go about, even if we have to, for example, we fail on a project or something, how do we deal with it, and then how can we actually talk to other people, not only just at good times but at bad times. Sometimes you have to have difficult conversations. I think that kind of things, usually we learn it on the go, and
Mm.
we're actually already in the water, right? So we have to, but I think definitely one way we want to go about it is at least like creating a sense of situation where they're at and how to deal with it and make them think. I think like those kind of simulation, maybe not as intense and not as real as reality, but I think it gives them an idea and give them some tips about how to go with it after they graduate. So definitely.
Yeah, I like what you said. You're trying to give them a simulation of what it's like, right? And it can be tough. You can have difficult conversations, and it might cost a little more. But the knowledge and experience the teachers and the students have gained from that experience it's worth it, because then they're discovering something new that they thought, oh, I actually can solve these problems. I'm actually good at, let's say, sales or public speaking. I'm actually good at, let's say, accounting and tabulating all the costs and expenses. So all these are, life skills that they can learn a lot from, and they go on and move on to, let's say, getting jobs and living their lives, all starting from the entrepreneurial mindset. Dr. Ray, I'll come back to you now. I hope that's enough time to kind of just give some context here. So, in your experience, what were some of the tools or frameworks? Because Risa was talking about a simulation, right? So there has to be some sort of framework or tools that you kind of have so that you can actually guide teachers and learners through this experience of simulated entrepreneurship. Maybe you can share your experience, Dr. Ray.
All right. For the LP experience, we started with with including this entrepreneurship skills among the graduate competencies of our students. So from there, we we revised our program outcomes. We incorporated entrepreneurship there.
Mhm.
We also our curriculum. We changed our curriculum. We injected entrepreneurship across all programs, not only
Mm.
for business admission students, even nursing. They have the entrepreneurship course. It's a requirement before they finish the program.
Mm.
We invited Nelish, the group of Acad Asia, and to train our teachers regarding this entrepreneurship. Then we created entrepreneurship committee to supervise all the entrepreneurship programs of LPU Batangas. Um, from there, we trained the faculty members. We group our students on across all programs. We ask them to do pitching at the end of the course. We also sent our students to various competitions, business plan and startup competitions, and those are some of the things that we did. And in the pipeline, we are one of the HEIs in the Philippines who is a member of the Pathway Project of Erasmus Plus, an Erasmus Plus program. So we are now developing our own incubator.
Mm.
We are now actually developing it, and I will be attending a training in France this May for this entrepreneurship program, so that we can set up our own business incubator in LPA Batangas. And also, what we are doing now is that we are going to revise our career development program for our students, because our right now
Mm.
currently our career development gears toward at the end our students being employed. But now we are
Mhm.
giving our students an option whether they will be employed or they will be an entrepreneur after completing the program. That's what we are
Wow,
doing
that's
in LPU
that's really
Batangas.
that sounds fantastic, Dr. Ray, because you're just opening up the options for your learners to explore other pathways when they
Yes.
move on from university. That's really admirable. That's great news. Um, does anyone else want to chime in on this? So, let's say, Doctor, you're saying maybe the others can comment. So, you're having the students join business plan competitions and do pitching. I mean, so how do you assess if they're doing well or not? Are you expecting them to, let's say, have a real business after these competitions, or how are they cultivating the mindset when they're joining these pitching events?
We let them experience how to be critic by by Nilish, and so that they have the feeling of how to accept failure. Yeah, that's part
Mm,
of the building the entrepreneurial mindset of our students. But one of our student who actually presented a very nice business innovative idea, actually put up his own business right after completing the program.
wow, that's nice. Can you share what kind of business did he start?
Um, it's actually a food business. Is now
Okay.
only a cafe
Yeah.
based on the on his idea when he presented a business idea on his entrepreneurship course.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, we don't have time right now to discuss, but I imagine, let's say, typically if they just get their degree and try to get employed at a certain, let's say, I want to become a Starbucks barista, right? That I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's
Yes.
perfectly fine, and you can have a nice, sustainable profession that way. But I guess your student said, no, I'll open my own food business. I'll open my own cafe, right? So, again, the things that you discover when you apply the entrepreneurial mindset in your curriculum. So, great, great stories there. Yeah. Does anyone else just move on to the last question because I want to
Right,
get to
right,
the Q and
right.
A.
Um,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Neil.
yeah, Roy. I just want to kind of point out one unique thing about what Dr. Ray and Marisa have mentioned. I think it all boils down to organizational culture. If the culture at the school, right from the top to the bottom, is all about innovation, then you will find that everybody, starts looking for opportunities to create, co-create, and innovate. If the culture is not right, then that is not going to happen. So, in my case, for example, when I was at Singapore Poly before I started Acad Asia, I would say, I have to kind of uh, commend my immediate reporting officers back then. My boss Georgina, who's currently the vice principal at Singapore Poly. Those days, she was my immediate boss. If she would not have allowed me to experiment on campus and build out our entrepreneurship program and grow it the way it eventually did. Of course, Clinton is one of the results of that program. We wouldn't be here today. At least I wouldn't be here today. So, like I said, it all boils down on the corporate culture. So that's why it's very important, not just for teachers, but more importantly for academic leaders, to really, sit back and really think through as to how can I inculcate this entrepreneurial mindset and the culture of innovation, not just for business students, but literally across the board, up and down. Everybody should basically have this mindset that if they see a problem, they should be able to solve it. And what you will find then is that even on campus, forget about business, but even on campus, if somebody finds that, hey, that light is not working or that projector is not working, instead of just not doing anything about it, they will, find a way to kind of solve those issues. And overall, you will find that the mind, the you know the positivity across the campus shoots up tremendously. I'm sure from what Dr. Ray mentioned, from when they started, I think I met Dr. Ray and his team about 3 or 4 years ago when we started this, right? The first run was about 3 or 4 years ago. from there until now, it has been a really tough and a long journey. But the organizational culture has been strong enough that the academic leaders did not give up, even though they did not see immediate results. It takes time for that culture and the mindset to change. If and that's also being partly being entrepreneurial, right? Because I mean, if the academic leader is not entrepreneurial, then they are bound to give up. After a year, if they don't see results, they'll say, "Okay, enough. Let's go back to doing what we were doing." But it takes time, and you need to have the stomach for it to say that, okay, this has to be embedded into the culture of the institution. Also, the other thing that I want to point out here, Roy, is a lot of people ask, why should teachers be trained? I mean, it's just a subject like any other. I know for a fact, like in Indonesia, in Philippines, in Vietnam, in India, there are a lot of teachers who teach multiple subjects. So why do I need to specifically be trained for entrepreneurship? And I think it all boils down to subject matter expertise. Okay, so think of it this way: if today you were supposed to say, for example, if you go to a medical school, and if you find out that your lecturer or professor has never ever been inside a hospital, basically they have just they're teaching you based on textbooks and that's it, then that becomes a big problem. It's the same thing with building an entrepreneurial mindset. In fact, Clinton, I don't know if you remember this, but a lot of the students in class when I was teaching in my teaching days, the first question they would ask me is, "Sure," because in Singapore they call teachers "sure." Okay, so they'll say, "Sure, how come you're telling us that entrepreneurship is so great and that we should really think of it as a serious career option, but you're here teaching me?" That's a that's a very serious question. That's a good question, but of course, unfortunately for them, they didn't know that I was doing this after having set up a couple of other ventures. But for other educators who might not have that experience, how do they answer that question? So then it becomes important for teachers who may not have started a business. It's okay, but you can be taught how to cultivate or how to nurture a student to have an entrepreneurial mindset. So that training becomes important so that the teachers know how to deliver a program correctly. And it's not just about theory, but more about experiential learning. So experience is important, but if the teachers don't have that experience, they need to get trained and they need to understand what to do in class so that they don't basically give their students the wrong experience or the wrong notion.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And that's really speaking from experience, Neil, that the organizational culture is super important. If they realize that they are actually providing huge value to their students by incorporating the entrepreneur mindset, it just elevates all the other subjects and topics they're actually learning, and they can actually apply it more closely to the real world. And that is really a huge benefit. So as teachers, how can we help? And I'm going to segue to some of the questions we have in the chat. So thank you. Just keep those questions coming in. Very interesting. So I'll combine some of these questions here. So it says here, what is the best advice you can give an educator in honing this entrepreneur mindset among their students? They're saying here, it's been a challenge for an educator of entrepreneurship to encourage students to engage in business when most of these students are actually only looking to pass their degree. So what advice or what suggestions do you have for these educators so that they can help embrace this topic, this entrepreneurial mindset, and think like an entrepreneur? And how do they impart it to their students?
Roy, can I take a crack at it?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so here's the thing. This is like real world advice. First and foremost, your entrepreneurship program should not be just about business. Stop doing that. I know it is very difficult for business schools to get away from business, but I think the focus should not be about entrepreneurship from a business perspective, but more about cultivating an entrepreneurial mindset. Number one. Number two, you need to relook at the way you're designing your content. From my experience, what I have seen, and I've met a lot of entrepreneurship educators over the years across the world. I have seen that typically teachers who are teaching entrepreneurship will have loads of slides, 45 slides, 50 slides per lesson. It's all about theory. It's about, what is a business model canvas? What is, this, writing a business plan, 100-page business plan, how do you write that? Those days are gone. You really need to relook at your content, and you really need to relook at the way you're delivering the courses. For example, the way we do it at Acad Asia, and again, Dr. Ray and Clinton have gone through that. We do it very hands-on. We actually expect students to actually experience firsthand what it takes to be an entrepreneur. So every week, they have to actually do something. And they have to go out and talk to users. They have to go and validate every single thing. They have to build product. They have to pitch to real investors. So it becomes a little bit more exciting because there's a lot of out of class hours which they need to spend. They don't have to be in class for entrepreneurship. They can be out in the field. They can be talking to users. They can be talking to customers, their colleagues, their partners, and that makes it fun for the younger generation. And the third, I think, is teachers need to be reskilled urgently, because I think, like I said earlier, majority of the people who are teaching entrepreneurship, if the student asks you, what kind of businesses have you set up, and if you don't have a valid answer for that, your student is not going to take you seriously. There's no credibility there, because from a business perspective, from a business school perspective, typically, like I mentioned earlier, teachers will always say, it's good for you to start a business, blah blah blah, and you need to learn how to write a business plan. But if the teacher himself or herself has never ever started a business, has never done anything of that sort, then the teacher doesn't have credibility. So that's why the teachers need to be retrained to understand how to deliver experiential courses on entrepreneurial mindset rather than entrepreneurship. So I think that wording needs to change. And those are the three things that I would say.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? And I just want to highlight on the last thing. So that where it comes into play, where you don't really have to so there's one comment here from our chat. They're saying that, of course, experienced people are always better educators in this sense, right? But what Neil is saying is you're cultivating the mindset, right? And the mindset skills are applicable to all, and even to you, dear teachers. You can go through this, and it's basically, as Risa was mentioning, it's the simulated environment that gets you as close to it as you think as realistically can be possibly done, and while being in sort of a semi-safe, safe environment, because you're still within academia. Maybe
Roy,
I just get some inputs.
Roy, if I could just jump in there, I want to make a point over here. Somebody at a comment has said, experienced people are always better educators. Actually, I do not agree with it. I don't think that is true all the time. Sometimes experienced people do not know how to teach. Okay, so
Yes.
So it works both ways. So that's why training becomes important. Whether you're an experienced entrepreneur or whether you are an experienced teacher, either ways you need to get trained so that you can deliver a quality class to your learners.
Did we lose Neil? I think
Seems like it.
unfortunately his connection's down, but it's okay. I just to kind of, I guess, quickly summarize his point. It's not necessarily always the case that the most experienced usually is the best teacher. Sometimes they don't know how to teach. So you, dear teachers, that's your skill. You know how to communicate with your students. You know how to connect with them. But this, I guess, programs like this is some of the advice we're sharing is you can go through this program. Dr. Ray has gone through it. Clinton has, and you can get as close to the entrepreneur mindset as you can, and that is still valuable for your students. I'll go through a couple of things here. Just, some interesting questions here, a little bit off topic but interesting. Maybe Risa, you can try taking a crack at this. A question here is, entrepreneurship a cultural phenomenon? It seems that mostly Chinese or Indians are mostly into it. Is it a race thing? And then maybe related as a follow-up to this, how about in developing countries where poverty is a huge issue? And how do you encourage and nurture entrepreneurship when the access to the opportunities is very challenging and the initial inclination is just get employed, right? So is it a race culture thing, and how about the economic factors in learning this?
I'll answer the second question first. The race one, I
Sure.
think it's very subjective, but then I think definitely for developing countries, I actually disagree. I think it's the other way around. I think when you're in a developing country, the pay is actually not that high. So there's actually a lot of incentive for people going to business instead of the other way around. And I think like if you go to Singapore, Europe, America, then there's a lot of people opting out for bigger companies because they pay a lot, And that's why I think like in Indonesia, 99% of the economy is actually run by small, medium enterprises. So micro, small, medium. So I mean, definitely, I think there's a big incentive if you actually go be an entrepreneur and actually doing your business. So yeah, there's a lot of incentive in developing countries. I think the only one is like if you are right now you are trying to create a startup and you want access to capital, that might be a little bit hard. But like if you want to bootstrap, you want to try something on your own in a small scale, I think it's very doable and cheaper perhaps. I would say. So yeah, we are talking about business, but back again, if we are talking about entrepreneurial mindset, I think yeah, definitely it will help a lot in developing countries, and there's a lot of incentive there. So that's one. The other one, I think culture, definitely there are some culture that supports being an entrepreneur more. I would say, but I don't think that's like the case for everyone. I think there's a lot of discussion right now about creating a startup, that kind of thing. So perhaps there's some culture like family will support it. I know there are some people in Indonesia that would be happier if their children becomes doctors, become lawyers. Sometimes they want to become public servant. That's very big in Indonesia. Like families really love it when their children wants to go to becoming a public servant. So there's that part. So maybe that's why when we talk about entrepreneur, there are certain races that push it forward more than others. But definitely going right now in a globalized world, there's a lot of Zoom going on. We can do a lot of like cultural sharing. I think it's becoming less and less, definitely. So
Yeah.
coming together.
Definitely. Yeah. I like what you said about, even in developing countries, the incentive to pursue opportunities in an entrepreneurial mindset way there's probably more incentive to do that because they can actually gain more rather than just being employed. Of course, there's some, and I don't think that's just an Indonesian thing, even Philippines, and in any country, I would say, there's always the safe path, be a doctor, be a lawyer, what have you. It doesn't make it any easier. It's also very challenging to go through those opportunities. But I guess, would you want that kind of career, or do you see an opportunity and you think you can take advantage of opportunity by building a business around it? Clinton, maybe I can come back to you on this. There's one question
Yep.
here. From what you've seen, maybe you can share, what do you think are the 3 most important habits that are needed to be a successful entrepreneur? 3 habits that you think an entrepreneur would need.
Wow, habits. Okay. Well, firstly, I think it is important to be proactive. So I think I'll define like proactiveness as a habit as well, right? Because as an entrepreneur, if you are not proactive, then I think it's very, very difficult, right? In terms of looking for opportunities, or even networking, for example, right? Everything you do, and this is not just specific to entrepreneurship, but just in life in general, right? The more proactive you are, the more opportunities you will have. I don't believe in that there will be a perfect timing to do a startup or to do entrepreneurship. There won't be a perfect timing. There'll be a perfect place, right? But if there is a will, there is a way, right? So I think that is something that would be one of the top so-called habits that people can cultivate, being proactive, right? Because more than often, depending on the situation, but we would more likely have a habit of being in our own comfort zone, right? So being proactive to challenge yourself to step out of the comfort zone, I think that is very important. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Second.
Yeah. Go ahead, Clinton. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of a second habit, perhaps I think discipline in what you do is something important as well. Because for entrepreneurship, you have a lot of uncertainties, right? So how do you stay on track? How do you be able to build a business from scratch, from nothing, right, into a successful venture? I think that is, a lot of it depends on the discipline that you can cultivate as well, right? So I believe that it is important also to cultivate, some hobbies as well. So, for example, for myself, I'm into martial arts. I've been practicing martial arts for the last 12 years, right, as well as fitness. So the way that martial arts plays a part in entrepreneurship for me is that I do derive quite a bit of the discipline that I have instilled through martial arts into my daily business practices. Yeah. So of course you have to keep fit, stay healthy. I think that is very important. Health is important for entrepreneurship as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for that, Clinton. I was going to ask, what do you do? Kung Fu, Taekwondo, what Jiu-Jitsu? What are you into now?
Well, I started off with Muay Thai when I was 13 years old. I was actually sent to do Muay Thai because I had a love for fighting, right? Yeah. So, so all these are eventually channeled into entrepreneurship because I mean a fighting spirit I think is important. So I started with Muay Thai for roughly around 2 years, and I went on to MMA. So mainly MMA over the years. Yeah. And of course, other disciplines like some wrestling here and there. Yeah, but mainly focusing on MMA.
That's really interesting because I thought it was a Bruce Lee kind of thing, or you have one style. But now I guess
Wing Chun.
more. Yeah, Wing Chun, right? So, but now you're talking like MMA, just combining all the skills, but essentially a disciplined environment and a disciplined routine, which also
Yeah.
it's a life habit as well as an entrepreneurship habit. So that's great.
Or
Does
perhaps
anyone? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, or perhaps mixed martial arts MMA is also another analogy of entrepreneurship, right? Because you have different disciplines, you need to have a stand-up martial arts as well as a ground grappling game, right? So how do you tie all this in and find a synergy? Is similar to what you do in entrepreneurship. How do you tie opportunities and turn them into reality, right? So I think there are a lot of things that really interconnect in life, right? So how do we really tie all this in together and empower us forward? I think that is something that we can all do.
Yeah, right. And that's why the entrepreneurial mindset, not necessarily just for business. I mean, yes, that's probably the framework we're using, but it is really an important life skill that teachers and learners can gain. Does anyone want to share any other habits, or how do you help, let's say, build a person's appetite for this, right? So we have one question here. As they're building their appetite, how do you cultivate an active learning among poor students? I think we already discussed this. In fact, if economic challenges are an issue, that might be a greater incentive for them to try entrepreneurial activities. So how do we kind of encourage or build this appetite on having this kind of mindset?
I think one of the most critical attributes for anyone to have if they want to succeed, it's not passion. Discipline is great. Um, um, you know, um, proactiveness is great, but I think the most important thing for me is hunger. The people really need to be hungry, if you want to succeed. Without hunger, you don't have anything. I mean, there's no incentive to do anything else, right? So, I mean, if you really think about it, because a lot of people will tell you, to be a good entrepreneur, you have to be very passionate. You have to be very passionate. Yes, that's true, but not entirely, because at the end of the day, passion will only get you so far, right? But it's not going to feed you. What is going to feed you is when you're hungry. When you're hungry, you will do anything to survive. And that's just an inherent, human, built-in quality that we have, that we want to basically survive. And that hunger is something that we need to um, develop in ourselves, both as teachers and as students. Teachers, because that hunger has to be there, that, hey, listen, I need to find better ways and more entertaining ways and more fun ways, more engaging ways to teach and facilitate learning for my students. Hunger. If you don't have that hunger, you are going to continue doing the same thing that you've been doing for the for the last 20, 30 years. And you'll never improve. And from a student's perspective, if you want to be successful, regardless of whether you want to start a business or whether you want to find an employment somewhere, in anything that you do, at the end of the day, you need to be hungry. You need to be able to say, hey, if I don't do this, I want to have 2 meals a day to feed myself and my family. I think that is at the end of the day what drives it. So coming back to the question that was posed by the participant about I think people from poor communities, and how do we actually instill active learning for entrepreneurship for them. Um, I think there are very many ways to do it. One way to do it is to actually even run community programs within your university and get your entrepreneurship students to actually facilitate the learning for somebody else. And if we look at it from an education perspective, that is the best way for anybody to learn. So, for example, if I teach something to Clinton, and if Clinton can go and teach that same skill to somebody else, I have done my job as a teacher, because I know that he has understood so well that he can now go and teach this to somebody else, right? So from an academic perspective, I think that is something that could also be looked at. Schools, colleges, universities can also look at building entrepreneurial communities, which can go out and into these communities to do design thinking projects, to do training projects, to train kids from the communities which may not be able to afford coming into a college or a school, and teaching them how to think and be entrepreneurial and develop that hunger to succeed. I think that could also be done very, very easily. And if that person needs more information, they can reach out to me. I can actually show them how to develop something like that for their campus.
Fantastic. We've run out of time, all right, because there are a few minutes left and we still have some housekeeping to do towards the end. So I just want to give an opportunity to all our speakers to give their final thoughts. Okay, so we've had a very rich discussion, super interesting, and all the questions with the audience have been absolutely amazing. So if I could get one round of final thoughts from all our panelists and speakers today, just to give some nice parting advice and insight to our audience. Anyone who'd like to start, please go ahead. So final thoughts.
Sure, I'll go first.
Sure, go ahead,
right.
Mr.
Okay.
MMA.
All right. So maybe in terms of like today's topic, right, just a quick summary or final thoughts is that what really defines an entrepreneur is not so much as what business he or she runs, or not the industry that he or she is in, right, but rather it is about the mindset that you have, right? So I think that is really true, especially in entrepreneurship, because pivoting of business, or industries is very common, right? So at the end of the day, what really defines you is the mindset, the entrepreneurial mindset that you cultivate and bring on to the next stage of your life.
Thanks very much for that interesting and helpful insight, Clinton. Final thoughts.
Okay. Thank you, Roy. Thank you, Nilish, for this for the opportunity, the LP experience in cultivating the entrepreneurial mindset of our students. So, for us in the academe, I think it's our I feel it's our responsibility to to um, to cultivate the entrepreneurial mindset of Filipinos. It should start with us in the academe. So let us start changing the mindset of our students that after completing the program, after completing the degree, they have to be employed. They are looking for employment. But let's accept the fact that there's no lot of employment, there's no enough employment opportunities for our graduates. Let us give entrepreneurship, let us give entrepreneurship as a better option for them after completing the program. We can do that by um, teaching them to embrace this entrepreneurship activities, inculcating, cultivating the entrepreneurial mindset of our students. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Ray, for those final thoughts.
I can go next.
Go, Risa.
I think definitely. Thank you, Ray. By the way, I think one of the things that, at least the takeaway that I feel like everyone here should carry is like, I think after this pandemic, like we see how much change is happening in education, in business. I think changes in the future will keep happening. Technology will innovate faster. So um, we are talking about agility, adapting to other changes. That is our current situation, whether we are in academia, whether we are actually going to employment in a company, in a big company, or maybe we start our own startup or business, right? So that kind of volatility and also like changes, being able to adapt will be very important for anyone. So whether we are educators right now, we need to teach online now, hybrid, right? We need to be able to do all this kind of changes. So definitely, I think being able to cultivate an entrepreneur mindset would be something that we all need to learn and start doing.
Thank you very much, Risa, for that. Neil, your final thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Roy, for hosting this, and thanks to Dr. Ray, Risa, and of course Clinton for joining us today. I think for me, the final thoughts primarily are that um, all the educators here, we should not be running away from the word entrepreneurship. We should be embracing it. We should be cultivating it in ourselves, and we should be helping to develop our students with that mindset. I think it's a very, very important skill set. In fact, perhaps one of the most important skill sets out there, because if you really look at it, a lot of the teachers who are joining us today are coming in from emerging markets. You're looking at Indonesia, you're looking at Philippines, Vietnam, India. These are all emerging markets. And if you want to really change the future of your country, the economy of your country, it all basically boils down to how many people in your country are able to create businesses that provide employment. So instead of creating employees, you should be looking at creating people who can generate employment for others. You should be looking at people who can solve problems and challenges at different levels. And that should be the mantra for most teachers today, the way I look at it, regardless of what you're teaching. It could be, any subject, but that as long as your culture in the school allows it, you should be able to put in some level of entrepreneurship mindset activities within that subject. Because at the end of the day, I think this is a very common thing that a lot of people have already know, that without teaching, you don't have any other professions. Okay, so similarly, without teachers with an entrepreneurial mindset, how do you then expect a country to innovate? So it becomes extremely important for the teachers to build that entrepreneurial mindset for themselves so that they can help their students to become innovators for tomorrow. So that's my final thoughts. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks so much, Neil. Again, great as always. Thank you to all our speakers. Your perspectives and insights have really shed so much light on what this entrepreneurial mindset thing is. not necessarily just for business, but in life. It's about our own resilience, having discipline, and inculcating that in our own daily life so that we can impart that to our learners and students as well. Having the organizational culture that supports, being able to be okay with failure and having the environment to learn from those mistakes. I think that is the greatest gift that the mindset program can actually provide, not just to the learners, but most especially the educators and the managers and owners of schools that would kind of incorporate this, just as LPU has done in really mandating, a part of their career development, as well as regardless of college, they have this mindset program in their campus as well. So I hope all the educators are inspired that it's not just for business, it's actually for life and for the adaptability of our own students, our resilience of ourselves and our students. You never know when the next pandemic will be or whatever other challenges are going on in the world, but we are human beings. We can learn, we can adapt, and we can thrive. And one of the ways to do that is having this mindset. So before we close our session today, I'm sure all of you are asking, okay, so how can we rewatch this session? How can we learn more about this? So while you can watch these recordings on our social media channels, YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, we also encourage you to sign up on FREEJOO so that you can get access to the course that is accompanying this program. So let me just share my screen really quickly. One moment. So here, if you log into FREEJOO, you'll be able to see a variety of courses that are available to you on the site. Okay, so you will have to create your FREEJOO account. The accompanying course with this, so that you can also earn a certificate for attending this webinar, as well as implement the the entrepreneurship mindset course is in FREEJOO. This is a premium course that is accessible to our silver members and up. So we have two programs on the entrepreneurial mindset. There's Futurepreneur 101, which is a program 7 weeks for senior high school students. And then we have Futurepreneur 201. This is similar to the program LPU has, which is 15 weeks for tertiary level. Okay, so I encourage you to actually sign up, get a membership on FREEJOO so that you can have paid access to these premium courses to start developing and cultivating the entrepreneurial mindset in your own schools. If you would like your teachers to be trained to deliver these programs, please reach out to us. You can contact us at breakfree@agatasia.com or just message us on our website and we can schedule a meeting with you so that we can actually discuss how to conduct training for your institutions to deliver these programs. And of course, next week, we have another very interesting webinar. I'd like to invite everybody to join the Introduction to STEAM education program. So this week, we're talking about entrepreneurship. Next week, we'll be talking about STEAM education. So that's actually the STEM education with arts. You have science, technology, engineering, mathematics, but we include arts with it. It'll be delivered by our good friend, Miss Gail Rosen from the US. And you can access also the Intro to STEAM program, which is another paid premium course. Again, if you sign up for this webinar, it's a paid webinar, but you'll have access to this plus all the other contents. So this week, we have Futurepreneur, and next week, we have STEAM. So on behalf of AcadAsia, let me stop sharing my screen now. On behalf of AcadAsia and the entire group here, Clinton, Riza, Dr. Ray, thank you so much for joining us. Neil, always a pleasure. And thank you so much for joining us today. See you again all next week. Thank you.
See you.
Thank you.
See you, everybody.
Hi,
Hi,
I am Jenny and
I am
welcome
Jenny
to
and welcome
FREEJOO,
to
the
FREEJOO,
global
the
community
global
of
community of
educators.
educators.
Let me show you
Let
why
me
as
show
an
you-
educator you should make FREEJOO an important part of your teaching and learning practice. A community of teaching practice is important for any educator. On FREEJOO you will be able to access CollabEd, which is like LinkedIn but for educators. Here you will be able to connect and network with other educators from all around the world. You can build your own community of teaching practice or join one of the many other existing groups and learn and share ideas, lesson plans, etc. with each other. Then, for a more formalized approach to professional development, you can go to SkillEd, which is like Netflix for educators. Here, you will be able to access a wide range of courses designed by global experts that will help you to learn about new pedagogical, technical, and soft skills, all related to 21st century education and the future of work. There are more than 20 courses available for free, and for more advanced level courses, you can upgrade to the Silver membership plan for just $20 per year and get access to all courses designed by Academia. The courses are available in English and in several other Asian languages. And what's more, you will receive a free verifiable and tamper-proof digital certificate for each course that you complete. If you have upgraded your membership to the Silver, Gold, or Platinum plans, you also get access to DesignEd, which is like Canva for educators. Here you will find the easiest and fastest way to practice your own instructional design skills and build your own courses. We have pre-integrated several third-party edtech apps like Flipgrid, Canva, Mentimeter, Padlet, H5P, Zoom, etc. right into FREEJOO, so you can make your courses engaging and fun for your own learners. As you can see, there is a lot you can do on FREEJOO as an educator. So what are you waiting for? Go to www.freejoo.com and get your very own free lifetime membership today. See you soon on FREEJOO.